Ladies and gents, welcome back. With the cost of living going way up for Canadians, the federal government is doing their very best to exacerbate the situation by driving up the cost of heating your home. That's right. The cost of energy is set to go up with these new environmental regulations on electricity in the hopes of having a net zero power grid by 2035. Let's get into this. New draft regulations on clean energy grid would drive up energy prices. This is from the Edmonton Journal. Environmental Minister Steven Guilbeault's details. Environment Minister Steven Guilbeault released draft regulations designed to clean Canada's energy grid. The regulations would drive up the cost of energy slightly, they say, but federal officials say that it would be offset by the savings expected to come from moving away from fossil fuels. It sounds a lot like, inflation going up, the cost of groceries going way up, but we're going to offset that by giving you a check one time for your groceries. The government has set a target of making the electricity grid net zero by 2035, and the regulations released today are meant to help guide the way. Environment and Climate Change Canada. Yeah, that's right. They changed the name of Environment Canada to Environment Climate Change Canada in 2015. Can you guess what happened in 2015? Estimates the national average household energy bill would increase by $35 to $61 per year if the regulations are adopted, but only 2% of that increase will come as a result of the regulations. Now, this is their official numbers. This isn't what other people are arguing will happen. Now, the federal government has had all kinds of other implementation of their policies, like making housing more affordable. How did that work out? We all know how that worked out. Now, Keean Bexte caught up with Minister Guilbeault a few weeks back to ask him about the regulations and the increased cost that is estimated to be $1.7 billion. He didn't even know that this number existed.
Hi, Minister. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Do I look familiar?
No.
Maybe not. Could you tell me what is your plan to replace the $1.7 trillion of money that we're going to have to pay to meet your goals?
I haven't seen those numbers.
Can you tell me, is this a V6 or a V8 that you're driving today?
It's a vehicle that was provided by the department.
Will you be putting Daniel Smith and Scott Moe in duds like these if they don't follow through with your plan?
We will continue to keep you informed.
So I'll leave a link in the description down below. You can watch the whole video where Keean Bexte goes over a lot of the regulations and why it's going to cost so much money to implement. But you can check that out on your own. Daniel Smith saying the federal government's new regulations on electricity will increase your utility bills and basically every other good and service, because yes, everything takes energy to do things. Just like passing the carbon tax increases the price of everything. Why? Because everything needs to be shipped by trucks. Everything takes energy to make food. Of course, farmers use a lot of energy to do what they do. So when you increase taxation on all of these things, well, it's going to increase the prices of all these things. The proposed mandate is unconstitutional. We will not let Albertans suffer by implementing this policy. So obviously she's standing up for the people of her province and the people under where she is, the premier of that province. So there's other provincial leaders, and we'll get into that are speaking out about this. Now, this is a must-watch. Minister Rebecca Schultz is clear, reasonable, and firm on Alberta's approach to an affordable and reliable electricity grid. Here she is.
Earlier today, the federal government released the draft clean electricity regulations. We will be doing detailed analysis in the months ahead. However, one thing is clear. The draft regulations are unconstitutional, irresponsible, unrealistic, and would make life less affordable for Albertans and Canadians. They will not be implemented in our province, period. They can't. We are beginning our talks with the federal government, and if we can't get alignment, Alberta will chart its own path to ensure we have reliable and affordable electricity for the people we serve. This means making sure we have adequate natural gas baseload and incentivizing CCUS-abated natural gas generation, small modular reactors, hydrogen, and a sustainable amount of wind, solar, and other renewables to drive down electricity costs. We need to be realistic. The world is going to need a lot more electricity. Estimates indicate the power demand could double between now and 2050, and Canada's generation capacity will need to be up to 3 times larger than it is right now. Instead, we've seen the federal government put ideology before common sense, affordability, and reliability once again. What was released today is a bait and switch, pretending to allow natural gas to continue while creating conditions where plants are forced to power down. In the dead of winter or the middle of summer, Albertans need natural gas to keep our grid running, keep families from freezing, to turn the lights on, to run air conditioning and businesses operating. Can you imagine being a parent of young children, having to ration power and not being able to turn on your light switches in the middle of the night in the middle of winter? We can achieve our environmental goals in a much more realistic way that doesn't jeopardize jobs, our economy, or put Albertans at risk.
It sounds like the federal government is trying to bring us a little bit closer to the ideas of South Africa, where they have load shedding, where people have to turn off their power for up to 12 hours a day to, give power to other people in the country. And this is because of their falling apart infrastructure and poor planning when it comes to their energy grid. Now, Danielle Smith making a statement on proposed clean electricity regulations. The draft federal 2035 net zero power grid regulations are unconstitutional, irresponsible, and do not align with Alberta's emission reduction and energy development plan that works towards a carbon neutral power grid by 2035. Now, she has a whole long announcement that she's made about this. I'll leave a link in the description down below where you can go check this out. But basically saying Alberta's government will protect Albertans from the unconstitutional federal net zero regulations that will impoverish people. This is really what it comes down to. Trying to remove our affluence, our ability to take care of ourselves, and then have to rely on government, of course. Now, Scott Moe, also of Saskatchewan, putting out a statement saying Trudeau's net zero electricity regulations are unaffordable, unrealistic, and unconstitutional. They will drive electricity rates through the roof and leave Saskatchewan with unreliable power supply. Our government will not let the federal government do that to the people of Saskatchewan. Now, this is what's being contested. They say, well, it's going to make it a little bit more expensive, but we'll offset it. Other people saying it's going to be more expensive. Blacklock reporter saying, well, they're going to pay more for electricity. Ratepayers in 4 provinces face steeper hydro bills, as much as 15% more. That doesn't sound like a few dollars more. 15% is pretty big. And then when you add on top of that carbon taxes and all of this stuff, it's not going to be very good. Under draft clean energy or electricity regulations released yesterday, it's time to roll up our sleeves, says Environment Minister Steven Guilbeault. Higher incremental rates increases are expected, and that's what you can expect on this one. Now, in a Calgary Sun article, they quoted Danielle Smith of saying the premier also said Steven Guilbeault is creating a constitutional crisis while the Trudeau Liberals are sinking like a stone in every part of the country. Now, this is true. This is actually true. Recent polls have come out from Polling Canada suggesting that if there was an election today, the Conservatives would win a majority. And this is increasing. It just keeps increasing. It was only like last week they said they're on their road to a majority. They were looking like there would be a minority of Conservatives in government. But if there was an election today, it looks like the Conservatives would win these seats. Now, this tells me that there's not going to be a fall election, because why would they hand over the power like that if they don't have to? So we're looking at a good 2025 election like was always planned. And this is what we're going to have to suffer with through that time. Now, this is all on the heels, all this whole idea of the energy crisis And why we need to cut down our energy is because of, well, the climate change crisis. And, well, we've all been seeing the headlines. Climate change made July hotter for 4 out of 5 people. Scientists find, this is only 4 out of 5 people found that it was hotter, apparently. If it was actually changing and it was getting hotter, you think 5 out of 5 people would notice that. Something's changed in summer. 2023 is screaming climate change, scientists say. And the article obviously goes on to suggest that man-made global warming is the cause of all of this. Now, you can understand, and this one gets me the most, is in British Columbia, since was once the wet coast, they say. 28 out of 34 river basins were at the province's top 2 drought levels. Now, this is really interesting because I live in British Columbia, and normally at this time of year, we're in severe forest fire warnings. You drive up the Sea to Sky Highway here, and you'll see that we're at moderate, and this is really unusual for this time of year. It's usually very, very dry, and it has not been very, very dry, and it's not been very, very hot either. And this leads me into talking about corrupted climate stations, and this is a study that was done they do it every year, but this is the 2022 edition, where they showcase a number of the climate stations around North America that have been corrupted. And the reason why they're corrupted is because they found that they're actually placed next to hot objects, whether those hot objects are roofs, pavement, asphalt, air conditioning units, painted walls, things like that. They show that the data is being corrupted, and this is why you could see scientists who never go outside reading the data and saying, oh goodness, it's getting really hot outside, and not actually walking outside to see whether or not their data is accurate. But this is why we see things like global boiling warnings, while in Italy we have snowstorms occurring in August. But you might say, well, that's because climate change. The climate's changing. No, these freak things happen occasionally. And it's been noted that these things happen from time to time. But hey, I'll leave this one with you. Is the global boiling occurring? Are we in a global warming state so catastrophic that we need to impoverish ourselves and put ourselves in a real pickle, kind of like Germany did when they shut off all their nuclear power plants to rely on solar and wind, only to find out that they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it, and they ended up needing a lot of natural gas, which they tried to buy from Russia, which was in great supply, until, well, one of those pipelines mysteriously blew up, and they don't have access to that anymore. They had to start buying from Poland that didn't have the full supply. Big crisis. And what happens when we have crises is, well, when we have crises, the government steps in and says, we can help you. There's nothing more... There's nothing you should be afraid of more than somebody coming and saying, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Anyway, leave a comment in the comment section down below and let me know what you think. And we'll see you in the next one. We'll see you tonight in the live stream. Keep on trucking.